evening. West Bengal has been in the storm of criticism for the political violence that erupted after the state elections earlier this summer. The NHRC team submitted a report to the court on the post-poll violence as well. Today, the Calcutta High Court gave its verdict, and it didn't go down too well with the Mamata Banerjee government, or at least how they would have wanted it to be. Now, let me first tell you what is it that the High Court has ordered. They have ordered a court-monitored CBI and S.I.T probe. Two different teams will look into the post-poll violence that took place in West Bengal. Two different teams, CBI to probe murder and rape allegations, while the Bengal Police S.I.T will probe offences other than rape and murder. And both of them are to submit a status report in 6 weeks. The court also asked the West Bengal government to compensate the victims of this violence. I just want to read out a part of this order where the court said that in spite of the fact that 3 months have lapsed, no concrete action has been taken by the state, which could inspire confidence except filling affidavits and placing on record thousands of papers. In number of cases pertaining to murder, rape and other crime against women, the cases are sought to be closed without registration of FIR or no response given to the committee, apparently to favor the accused. This is what has been cited and was obviously considered before the verdict was given. Not only that, the court has also rejected certain arguments that were made by the state government on the case. In fact, now I'm going to quote from the order that was written by the acting Chief Justice. Since it was a bench, multiple judges wrote their own order. And this one actually on allegations of a biased NHRC said that argument needs to be noticed and rejected and nothing more than that. That the entire effort seems to be to misdirect this issue, to delay the proceedings, to misdirect and derail the issue. And the court said that the state has been found on a wrong foot on a core issue. The bias allegation doesn't really stand because the panel, the committee, was only supposed to go on field and collect the information. And these are committee members with wide experience from different fields. The other big argument that the state had presented was that they're not responsible because during election time, it's the election commission that is in charge of the security forces. To that, the order says, argument deserves to be rejected outrightly. Cops are under the election commission only to ensure free and fair elections. That doesn't mean that their normal responsibility towards maintaining law and order goes away. That continues. And so state cannot blow hot and cold in the same breath. Tonight, we discuss this. Big jolt to the Mamata government. And finally, will we see some justice being done in the violence that was unleashed in many parts of the state after the elections? Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now on this story. Dr. Indraneel Khan, spokesperson for BJP in Bengal. Manojit Mandal, TMC supporter. Desh Ratan Nigam, lawyer with the Supreme Court. Snigdhendu Bhattacharya, journalist and author. Shoaib Daniel, senior associate editor with Scroll, also joining me this evening. Mr. Nigam, let's start off with you and your reading of the judgment that has come out today. The key takeaways for you from this judgment.
One of the important findings is post-poll violence was a retributive violence by supporters of the ruling party, which is TMC. And that's a very damaging statement unanimously coming from the 5 judges bench. It's not a single bench, it's not a division bench, it's a 5 judges bench. So this is something very, very serious. And the mechanical manner which the state government filed its affidavit without even applying its mind, that was also a matter of concern for the, Calcutta High Court. And that is where, and this is at this stage of investigation, no government should have shied away from investigation. We know what happened. People are still, staying in Assam and various other states who have run away. And we also know, and let me tell you, The ghastly pictures that I have personally from the field, if I show it on your TV, you will be appalled. And that I received from the ground, what was happening out there. The burning of properties, the naked parading of women out there, the rapes that took place, the murders that happened, and ghastly. They were set to create an example, not merely simple murders in cold blood, but retributive murders, creating a kind of an environment so that nobody ever thinks of voting for any other party except TMC. So this is it is about investigation, and let me tell you, and I can see that there will be a lot of hurdles and obstructions, although the court has noticed that about the obstruction, and that will be taken very seriously. The state has to give all its record to the CBI, and all those things will be there. And I am expecting huge amount of hurdles. And at the same time, let me tell you, when Jagdeep Dhankar, the honorable governor, was saying the same thing, not many people took him seriously, and he was right on the spot, and that is what exactly has been found out by the honorable Kolkata High Court and a 5 judges bench. It's a constitutional bench. It's not a small thing. Let me tell you, as a lawyer, let me tell you, it's a very serious issue when you have a unanimous verdict and complete law and order which failed out there. And the court was absolutely right that the normal law and order remains with the state and the COP, and the election commission is for there to ensure free and fair elections. At the same time, another thing that they had mentioned earlier also, it was the rule of ruler, not the rule of law.
Yes.
And that's very important. It sums up everything. I mean, you don't need to even elaborate once you say it's a rule of ruler and not the rule of law. And that, in my opinion, is sum and substance and crux of the whole issue.
But isn't the part about, and just for clarification for my own understanding, and I may have got it wrong, but isn't the law of ruler actually the citation from the NHRC report, Mr. Nigam, that has been put in the order?
Yes. In fact, see, if somebody makes a submission and courts accepts it and finds it valid, it is put in the order. Even otherwise, the submissions are put in order. So it, in fact, sums up in very few words what was actually happening. And I was getting, visuals, videos, ghastly images from the ground, and I passed it on to the relevant people. And I'm sure they must have reached the concerned authorities. And those were very shocking. And I have not seen such kind of a retributive violence to someone who's voted for somebody else.
Okay, let's take it point by point. Multiple aspects that have emerged. Shoaib, I wanted to bring you in here. The fact of the matter is that it's taken us, months from May to now to even get to a point where we actually are going to at least have an investigation. Nigdendu, let's get your view in. At least an investigation, because so far, and that's also mentioned in the court order, there's been no attempt to even punish the guilty.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So let me first start with what my previous speaker said. One of the things he said was naked parading of women. Where did he get those visuals or photographs from? I, as one of the journalists covering Bengal, can only relate this to an RSS propaganda. I can't see beyond this. Naked parading of women. Where? First, then let me come to this court order. There are some problems which I find really deeply troubling with this court order. So this order reads that the respondents are seeking to allege bias against the members of the committee, that is the NHRC nominated committee, as they are unable to come out of facts. But they are saying, this order says, let me just quote from this order, it is not a dispute between the NHRC and the state, as is sought to be raised by the respondents by giving it a political color. How come, I can't understand how did the Honorable Court reach such a conclusion? if we look at the composition of the NHRC committee, the bias is evident. I mean, just look at the composition of each and every member. The government employees who have been part of this committee are either central government employees, central government appointees, and those who belong to Bengal are judicial appointees. And the two members, one from the Minority Rights Commission and the other from the Women's Rights Commission, they both have strong links with the BJP, and this is public. Where is the state government's representation in this committee? And then when the committee comes here to investigate, they name prominent TMC leader Udayan Guha as the Gunda. Whereas Udayan Guha himself was attacked. His hand was fractured. He spent 1 month in a hospital to recover. And then you write off Udayan Guha as a Gunda without even speaking to the man who has himself spent 1 month in jail. And we can give a list of people who have died in political violence after May 2nd. There will be at least 12 to 13 names who belong to the TMC, whose family members have specifically named BJP. Did NHRC members visit a single of these people who belong to the TMC and were killed in the aftermath of the election?
So, Snigdhendu, the points that you are raising may well be, worth looking into and debated, and panelists here will also, respond to the points you're raising. But irrespective of whether it's TMC or BJP or any other political party, whoever was leading, responsible for most all individual instances of this violence, two things that I'm asking you. Can you deny that there was widespread violence? And can you deny that it is the state's responsibility to stop the violence or at least investigate it when it happens?
No, I can't deny either of them. There was violence. No one can deny violence. There was violence, but this was not one-sided violence as a section of the political administration is trying to portray. Send any journalist from any part of India with a free mind and ask him to travel the villages and ask from people, and you will see the violence was not one-sided.
Okay.
And one last thing I would like to mention in regarding this court order. The court order in one place says the aforesaid stand of the state, which is totally contrary to the facts on the ground, justifies the case of the petitioner for an independent probe, which could be done by CBI only. CBI is the only institution that can do an independent probe after all what we have seen of the CBI since 2014. Every political party except for the BJP has alleged that CBI is working with a bias, and all journalists with an open mind can see how the CBI gets in an active mode once the elections come and against the opposition parties.
Okay.
In Bengal, we have seen it quite brazenly how the CBI has operated.
Okay, so let me pick up that point, and before I go to the political representatives, bring in Shoaib, Daniel as well. Shoaib, but the fact that this is going to be a multi-agency, two-agency, court-monitored probe, does that help? Will that to some extent allay these concerns of biasness of any agency or probe authority?
Separate one is the violence down.
Shoaib, let's try and fix that audio line with you. We're not getting a very clear audio line. We're going to try and reconnect with you and fix that line. Let me bring in now Manojit Mandal. Mr. Mandal, the fact that the court has said that there needs to be a CBI probe, and even the S.I.T probe and the CBI probe will be court monitored, clearly shows lack of trust in political parties and their ability to influence investigations?
I think contrary to that, the court is probably not entirely sure to do what with this case, simply because most of the cases, according to them, which are not really heinous. So even if I'm attacked and lose my hand, one of my hands, it will not be heinous crime. It goes to the Kolkata police. In fact, is being led by the police commissioner. So I think the court is in two minds. The court is not sure to do what should be done in these particular cases, because the allegations are extremely political in nature. To talk about investigating the matter, let me tell you, it is in the affidavit, not just in the High Court, but the submission was also made in the Supreme Court in one particular case of alleged rape, which was, if had at all happened, I think we strongly condemn that we have filed a FIR and people are arrested. I'm talking about a particular incident which took place in the intervening night of 5th of May, and Mamata took charge on 6th of May. A FIR was filed on the same day. In fact, on the 7th May, I should be saying. So the fact, you talk about the responsibility of the state law and order. What does the state do when most of the good officers are being brazenly, without any rhyme and reason, being transferred by the Election Commission of India, including the DG and ADG law and order? What does the state government do when the best of its officers are being transferred? I mean, look at the places where violence took place during the polls. And I'm saying this is poll-related violence. Nandigram, Shitalkuchi, I'm not even referring to the 4 people who were gunned down by the state force. Yes, I completely agree with the judgment on this count. The state is responsible for violence. Then, my honorable lords, who is responsible for the violence, killing of these 4 innocent voters on 10th of April at 10:30 a.m.? Who was responsible for the person who was killed before that on the same day? 18-year-old who was trying to vote in front of the CBI. 5 people killed in the same day. CRPF was manning the station. 4 are killed by the CRPF. I make this very humble submission. Who is responsible for this killing? State of West Bengal or CRPF controlled by Mr. Amit Shah?
But
No
Mr.
answer has been
Mandal, the case right now and the pleas right now in the
Tanvi,
court,
let me
before the
complete my
court,
point.
were
Let
about
me complete my
post-poll
point.
violence where the state was any which ways in charge.
What kind of an argument is this? Any violence that took place on the 1st
Of
of May
course,
is
for
not
every
violent.
violence, there needs to be accountability, investigation. But I am saying that in front of these judges at this point, this was the case that they were hearing. Now, if you go back to the same bench if you want, file another plea and follow up on the cases that you are referring to during the election, then we can sit and have that conversation. But that example cannot be used to argue about facts of this example right now.
No, I know what I'm doing, Tanvi. If these people are brazenly killed in broad daylight and no justice is given to them during the election, there are constitutional body, they should take sumo to action. What was the NHSC doing? What was the court doing at that point in time? It was a brutal public massacre. It is very much, the court is saying, and I agree that court cannot remain mute spectator to this violence. Was that an instance of violence? If it happened on 1st of May, prior to 2nd of May, it is not violence. If it happened 2nd of May, even then, the state machinery is not actually activated by the chief minister, it becomes a violence. Of course, it is a violence.
Okay.
But the state is trying its best to control that violence. It has controlled its violence after 6th of May. You have to understand these technicalities also. The caretaker, chief minister, caretaker, who was controlling law and order? It is the governor of West Bengal after 2nd of May. Till 2nd of May, till the publication of result, declaration of result, it is the Election Commission of India. If the violence, they are saying that this is a poll-related violence. This is also poll-related violence that I am talking about, right? The fact remains that why CBI? Why CBI? CBI, I don't need to talk about the credibility of CBI. My good friend from, my good friend journalist has already talked about that. I mean, how does one believe in the CBI as something obviously
Okay.
completely apostle of justice?
Well, we will have to leave it to
Almost a
we will
damnation
have
come
to
the
put our trust at least
my
in the judiciary. We will have to put in our faith in the judiciary and not one single judge, Mr. Manojit Mandal. It is 5 judges involved to outright dismiss everything that they decide to do and order and look into wouldn't be right. Then you can just go on and say, how do we have trust in anything? Somewhere we have to find an option to put in our faith, and if not judiciary, then who? You expect us to believe what the SIT finds and not the CBI? Let the court decide that.
I'll reply.
The fact, 1 minute. Let me bring in Indraneel Khan on this, because the court will decide, Dr. Indraneel Khan. Mr. Mandal, I'll come back to you, don't worry. Indraneel Khan, the court will decide. The court will monitor the probe. The court will get constant updates from the CBI and the SIT on what's gone on.
Listen, today it's when we are speaking that BJP claims a victory, I disagree with that, because it's a victory, it's a reassurance of the people of West Bengal who were affected by this post-poll violence. There were thousands who were homeless. Many of their livelihoods had been snatched away, and people were actually murdered. Over 60 murders have been documented by this fact-finding committee, and around 13 rapes that need to be investigated as per the Honorable High Court order. So you just understand the massive and widespread post-poll violence that West Bengal witnessed, and this is totally unprecedented. Yes, Manojitda or someone backing him was saying that this is the court was in 2 minds whether whom to appoint and all these things. Yes, it was totally unprecedented. Whatever happened is totally unprecedented in the world's largest democracy. And Manojitda was very much, I am very happy that he was explaining the alacrity with which the state government had acted upon the Sitalkuchi firing incident. But I wish the state government had acted so much smartly and with totally in an impartial manner when it mattered to the people who were affected by the post-poll violence. There were cases that were not being filed. Police were staying a mute spectator as murders were happening. Even in the heart of Kolkata, we lost one young Karyakarta of the BJP who was Abhijit Sarkar. He was from Beleghata, and it was his brother who had to go and find the murderer. As per the police records, the murderer was not available. He was not found. He was Ferar, they were writing. But he was told to be absconding. But he was out there roaming around in the daylight. And his brother had to pick him up and submit to the police. That is the situation. If the police and the state administration had acted the way it acted upon the Sitalkuchi incident, had Mamata Banerjee been proactive and not dismissed all these incidents of post-poll violence. In fact, Mamata Banerjee criticized the Honorable Governor by saying "Choke Naba hoyeche," that is, as if the governor is saying with colored vision and all these things. And that's how the Mamata Banerjee reacted to the post-poll violence. He totally denied all these things. And as a result, the TMC cadres had a free run. In a specific, you have seen those gaudy videos and photographs. I'm not going into that because today everything has been the court has said that all need to be investigated. And this is the most important thing that we are telling, that whatever the allegations are coming, you just investigate. Had the police investigated, had the state administration investigated over these 3 months, I don't think the Honorable Court would have to resort to CBI. The need for CBI or any non-state government agency has come because of the failure of the state government to protect its own citizens. I think Mamata.
So I want to limit it to exactly that. Now, whether it was the BJP who did it, the TMC who unleashed more terror, is for the investigative agencies to find. But Shoaib, the fact of the matter is an investigation was needed into what all happened. Otherwise, we can continue debating this for another 3 months without actual facts with us.
So there are 2 sort of separate issues that I'd like to look at, Tanvi. One is obviously the fact that there is political violence in West Bengal. There's, the situation is there the past 5 decades. So there is causes belli for an investigation to happen. The second is, the political tug-of-war around this is that this allows a CBI investigation into the violence. A sort of open-ended investigation allows the BJP a critical handle to sort of continue to put pressure on the Mamata government, especially at a time when, remember, the Trinamool is trying to expand nationally. So as we speak, for example, the Trinamool has had Sushmita Dev from the Congress joining. It's expanding to Tripura. It's had an independent MP from Assam, where sources say that he's going to join the Trinamool. So while the BJP might be in a really bad state in West Bengal itself, this sort of thing will help it keep up the pressure on the Trinamool using the CBI, which, has been sort of debated, ever since the UPA is a sort of cage parrot. So it will help the BJP put political pressure from that POV on the Trinamool government. So that's the way I would look at it politically.
I want to add one thing, because since the livelihood of the people are at stake here, since the people's lives have been affected, I think it's more to we think of the people of our West Bengal rather than the particular colors to which these people, which party supporters are the victims and who are the assailants. But these people need relief. They need rehabilitation. And those who we have seen the irreparable losses like murder and rapes, those need to be investigated and justice has to be done. That's the only thing that we demand, rather than thinking of any political mileage and all these things, because the people need relief and justice. That's what matters.
Yeah, I would like to intervene.
Can I come in?
I would like to just make one point.
Okay, one at a time. Manojit Mandal wanted to make a point first, and then Snigdhendu, I'll come to you. Yes, Mr. Mandal.
So first of all, you call NHRC as a fact-finding committee. Now, under which provision of law a fact-finding committee pronounce a minister guilty of being a heinous criminal? Were they finding facts or were they delivering judgment? And if this becomes the basis of any verdict pronounced by any court, must be scrutinized and challenged in an appropriate authority. The very definition of a fact-finding committee says that you will be completely, please let me make my point, you'll be completely neutral. You are trying to find facts. Now, Jyotipriya Mollik, a very senior minister in Mamata's cabinet, he was put as a most wanted criminal by NHRC. Now, do you trust this report? I mean, this is amazing. And you talk about who prompted violence. The court, probably two or three judges, they have observed the ruling party has not done anything to suggest that they are actually triggering violence or they are provoking violence. On the contrary, I am making this charge. Who are the leaders who are continuously provoking their cadres? It is Dilip Ghosh, the MPs, Shubhendu Adhikari, Rahul Sinha. Everywhere there will be Shitol Kuchis. That's what their statement, that will make Shitol Kuchis everywhere, will kill people like this. Nothing was done to these people. And in fact, this is my charge against my own government, that why there is no FIR against these people. You talk of Hitlerism, Mr. Shubhendu Adhikari is charged of heinous crime, including theft and extortion.
Well, why didn't you charge them?
Because we do believe in due process of, don't laugh, Mr. Supreme Court lawyer. Yeah, I know that you are not a lawyer. You are a BJP
Mr.
student.
Mandal, calm down. Don't get so agitated. It's a simple question. If there was a crime, heinous crime, brutality that was unleashed in your state, why didn't your government do anything about it?
Actually, that way there is a
let Manojit Mandal answer this, please. What he himself has raised. Yeah.
I know what I am doing. Should we arrest Mithun Chakraborty as well? We don't believe in this kind of retributive justice. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
It's not about retributive justice. If there is a crime, there needs to be justice.
Will you allow me to complete my point? Will you allow me to complete my point? Mr. Arjun Singh has cases against him, including murder. Did you arrest him? Because we do believe in the process of law. Arrest is not mandatory because this is a civil government. This government believes in civilized system of law, or else, if the kind of thing that you are saying, retributive justice, retributive violence, forget about retribution. These people are known criminals. I'm making this charge on television.
Okay. Indranil Khan needs to react to that since you mentioned BJP.
Nitish Pramanik has got a dozen cases against him. Is he behind the bar? We don't believe in this kind of justice at all.
Yes. Indranil Khan.
This is a narrative planted by BJP and
students. Okay. Mr. Mandal, got your point. Yes.
Sometimes. We are the opposition. So he was speaking that there were ministers who were
speaking.
named in this
Well,
committee
I
and
am
all
the
this.
opposition.
But I would like to tell him, no, you are still the ruling party, and everything, the police, administration, everything
Not
is
on
in
this
under.
channel. We don't, not
And
on
listen,
this channel. Not on this
and
channel.
one
On
thing
this
I would
channel, we are the ruling party, everyone
and one
knows.
like to tell you, one thing I would like to tell you, that is the state government, that is of Mamata Banerjee, you should not forget. And there is a rule of it should be the rule of the law. And as per law, every citizen is equal. But as per you were saying that they are ministers, so they should not be named. That is very much something that smacks the equality of law. For the law to be equal, it should be equal to every citizen. A
He
VIP
doesn't
culture
understand the
should
meaning of
not
a
be tolerated.
fact-finding committee.
TMC cadres, if you are a TMC minister, you are a TMC cadre, you should not be named. That is something that's we sincerely object, and that should be objected to, irrespective of any type of political station or anything.
Okay,
Because
I want to, okay, point taken. I want to just one
So just
minute,
10
please,
seconds,
1
I
minute,
need
make
10
one thing very clear to our viewers at least. In the order itself, the court has in multiple places address, of course, the NHRC report that has been submitted. In one part, they also say that the allegation of bias against the committee is not material because this court has considered not only the report of the committee but other materials as well as arguments of learned counsel based thereon. So it will be
Now, what kind of a
unfair to
contradiction is
say that the court's decision to order an investigation is simply because NHRC went and told them that XYZ is guilty. Snigdhendu wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would first like to contradict Mr. Mondal over two things. One, this is not right to justify the violence what happened by citing the Sitalkuchi firing which happened during the elections. One firing or one kind of violence doesn't justify another kind.
Correct.
There was violence and the state needed to respond. There is no doubt about it. The other point on which I would like to contradict him is that he was speaking of Shubhendu Adhikari and Arjun Singh having and Nishit Pramanik having cases against him. Now, just like the BJP, TMC has also been accused by all opposition parties of using the police to frame political opponents. So, just like BJP faces this charge in other states, in other parts of the country, the TMC also faces the same charge here in West Bengal of politically using the state administration. Now, I would like to contradict Mr. Khan. He was referring to governor, our honorable governor, and saying that as if the governor wears a colored glass. Now, all over India, if there are two governors who are known to flaunt their colored glasses, are Arif Muhammad Khan of Kerala and Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar of West Bengal. This is not just Trinamool Congress's allegation. Just look into the tweets of all opposition leaders, be it Abhishek Manu Singhvi or of Samajwadi Party or an NCP leader. Everybody knows Jagdeep Dhankar wears colored glasses. So it is not right to see a truth through the glasses of a governor who has been widely accused of giving a biased opinion. And now the third part, on the part of the court and the ruling, I have only one observation or one suggestion to make, that when there is there are so many charges and counter charges and biases against both kinds of state apparatuses, like biases against the state police and biases against the CBI, the investigation should not give any kind of advantage to either the state government agencies or the central government agencies. This court needs to find a balance. If we really look for an independent and unbiased report based on unbiased investigations, otherwise this investigation committee and their report will be used as political tools. The court should not help in this kind of politicization of violence.
Okay.
I think
Okay, point taken. So let's go back to the investigation part, and Shoaib, if you can come in here as well. You mentioned, of course, that political violence has inherently been part of Bengal for 5 decades. It just perhaps to rest of India, it just sounds, so much bigger and bloodier and uglier now because it's, plastered across all our television screens and social media screens. But it's always been there. And so perhaps, some kind of investigation would help to put it into perspective. But 4 months on, how much of the truth will we be able to find, especially when it comes to political violence kind of instances?
I mean, we'll have to wait for the final report, but yeah, at the end of the day, what could happen is that this investigation also would be like violence itself would could devolve into political partisanship. I mean, as the BJP, for example, correctly fights political violence in West Bengal. In Tripura itself, it's sort of, as the incumbent, it sort of champions political violence. That's another state with a history of political violence. If you look at the Trinamool was a victim of political violence under the left, but today it's largely the aggressor. So West Bengal is really caught in this, completely spiral of violence that, I hope for the best from this investigation, but I wouldn't bet my money on it.
Yes, Deshratan Nigam wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
In fact, I was very keenly watching and listening to everyone. And the one issue that arises is in fact, everybody in my past, 2 decades I have seen have asked for CBI inquiry depending on what situation you are in. Whether it was Mamata Banerjee during her time has also asked for CBI inquiry. The oppositions has also asked, and the BJP has also asked for CBI inquiry. So independence of CBI cannot be doubted. It's being an autonomous organization as established by Supreme Court through its various judgments. Anyway, even its appointment of director is also a very different procedure. Government cannot appoint on its own. So let's be very, very clear. Now, I'm rather surprised why some people are troubled by mere investigation. It is an investigative process, and you will have all your chances to challenge it and to see it in a court of law. So what is troubling for the investigative process to take place is something which I cannot fathom, nor can I digest. Now, thirdly, let me tell you the ghastly scenes that I had seen, and you might find it slightly strange, but it's certainly not strange. What is happening in Afghanistan and what happened in post-poll violence, and if you look at the pictures, you will find the similarities. And did Taliban learn?
No, Mr. Nigam, I don't think we should do that. Please, Mr. Nigam, I don't think we should do that. I don't think we should actually trivialize the kind of horrors that a militant group like Taliban does. Please, let's not trivialize it or link it to anything that happens in our country.
Can I respond? If I send you the pictures, believe me, you will start singing the tune which I am singing. I have those pictures and I have authenticated of them, and I'm making, and I don't make on your channel or any other channel statements without, having that sense of responsibility. I'm not trivializing it. I am telling you the seriousness of the situation and that we must all realize what has happened in West Bengal. It should not be repeated in any part of the country, anywhere where a democratic government is established, where people are allowed to do free voting. And I'm making with a full sense of responsibility this statement. And let me also bring one another aspect is that...
Is it a monologue of sorts?
No. You continue
to abuse my state and my people?
I'm not abusing your people. Please remember that.
Yes, you are.
West Bengal is born. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. I never interrupted you. Tanvi, control him. I never interrupt anybody.
Okay, 1 minute. Mr. Mandal, I will give you time to respond to him. Let Deshratan Nigam finish 30 seconds. And Manojit Mandal, then I will give you time to respond to him. He didn't interrupt anybody. 30 seconds to him to finish his point, and then you can react to it.
See, Tanvi, West Bengal is known for its culture, literature, food, and so many things. And I've traveled it quite widely, the West Bengal. And I love the people. The difficulty with TMC is it is destroying the very fabric of West Bengal for which it is known. And that is what I drew that similarity. We have to be very, very careful that the original culture of West Bengal, for which we all are very proud of, its contribution in freedom struggle, we should not let that go to waste just by one political party which seems to think that democratic processes can be taken for granted and you can, by post-poll violence or even pre-poll violence or during the poll, the violence that took place, you can defeat the mandate of the people. And therefore, the seriousness must dawn on TMC that it's a 5-judge bench order. It's a unanimous 5-judge bench order. It's a constitution. I think they don't realize this.
Okay, Manojit Mandal can respond.
Can I?
Yes.
You see, RSS, he is an RSS man, I mean, completely known to all of us. I do not call RSS a terror organization, despite the fact that they have produced the most heinous terrorist in the country who killed Mr. Gandhi in 1948. Despite the fact that occasionally they produce terrorists, I will not call RSS a Hindu terror organization. Even now, there is, look at it. I mean, you have it on your show. You have it on your show. They're talking about tolerance. You also have a terrorist in the now, can I speak? Can I speak, madam? Madam Anchor, I seek justice from you now. I seek justice from you now, madam, not from these intellectual Talibans.
Okay. I am going to just make one thing very clear to all of our panelists. There can be many other places where all of you can go and have these kind of rhetorical conversations. Can we please come back to this case and talk about the facts of this case? Yes, Professor Manojit Mandal, finish your point now.
Yes. What I'm saying is that RSS, despite the fact that they produce occasional terrorists like Nathuram Godse...
You made that point. You don't have to repeat it ad nauseum now. Point made. Let's get on with it now.
You're not interrupting this person when he's abusing my people, saying that we are Talibans. What kind of a debate is this?
Do you want to make an additional point right now, Manojit Mandal, or not?
No, I want to, but only if you allow me to. You are not allowing me to do that, right? The fact remains that the BJP has got this kind of defeat on its face 2-3 months back. They cannot digest, including the people who are talking about this. And they talk about violence. Even this Khela Hobe slogan, let's have match on or play on. They said this is violence because what they think, this is violence in their thought. They rise in this country. In fact, I should say they rose to power by act of violence. Who forgets? Late 1980s, early 1990s, and the last few months. They talk about CBI's independence. 10 years back at least, CBI was being handled by an educated minister, not the present one, not the present home minister who had to spend in jail for 60 days. We did have trust in CBI. Some trust was left at least 10 years back. But right now, what is a CBI? It's a Rottweiler against the opposition. It's a central bureau of intimidation against the opposition. Look what they have done on 17th of May. 78-year-old man, on the day of filing the charge sheet, you dragged him from his house during that COVID surge and you call it a neutral organization. We want investigation into the matter, but certainly not by the CBI. In fact,
so who is the neutral organization? Okay, who is this neutral organization that can investigate? NHRC no, CBI no, state police no. Where is this neutral organization? Give me a solution now, Manojit Mandal. Who should investigate? The state could not control the violence. The state has not investigated the violence in all of the cases. The state didn't want to file FIRs in so many of those instances. CBI cannot be trusted. NHRC cannot be trusted. Who is going to give justice to the people of your state? Who is going to give justice to people of your state?
You trust CBI when these two people were fighting, one and two, and they went to
I trust
court?
the court. It's a court-monitored investigation. You are raising questions on a court-monitored investigation, not me. It's not even started. It's a court-monitored investigation. Why are you already making noise?
To the best of my knowledge, CBI in this particular case, CBI is not being monitored by the court.
Both of them, Mr. Manojit Mandal, are going to go back to the court and report to the court on the status of their investigation, submit reports to them. Mr. Nigam, am I wrong here? Is the court not going to monitor both investigations?
Yes, you are right. You are absolutely right. Tanvi,
Even if
you
the
are
court is,
absolutely
suppose the
right
court is
that
monitoring,
both
the court,
SIT and the
let
CBI
let
will
me,
be monitored by
No,
the
sir,
court.
Manojit Mandal, CBI and SIT, both investigations will be monitored by the court. Because if it was
fine,
not the
fine.
case, it would actually be another embarrassment for your party and your
Even
government
if,
that the court
if
doesn't have faith in the SIT but has faith in the CBI.
even if that is the case, does the court interfere in day-to-day matter? Could the court reject the NHS report saying that this is totally biased? What are you talking about? You say, you talk about fact-finding. I again come to the technical issue. Since we are talking about a judgment, fact-finding committee cannot pronounce judgment. There is a man Supreme Court lawyer. Ask him whether I am wrong or not. If you talk about a fact-finding inquiry, the fact-finding inquiry cannot pronounce any person as a criminal. That's what it has done. Could the court reject it? Could the court reject it? Could the court reject this fact-finding committee? So let us not.
Yes,
Court
okay.
has to say.
Okay.
No. I have not completed my part. Court
Acha.
has to say what it has. We will have the right to challenge this verdict.
Yes, of
we are
course.
certainly challenging this verdict. No problem.
So
the
is your
court
right.
makes this observation on the basis of submission made by NHSC, which is totally political.
I just read out to you, Mr. Manojit Mandal, a part of the order itself which says that we are not only basing this decision on the submission of the NHRC. The court hasn't passed an order to say who is guilty or not.
No. What does it mean? Not only that means we are not rejecting that NHSC report.
Why should they
It
reject the NHRC report? The report has been given to CBI to investigate.
This verdict is full of, that's what I'm saying. This verdict is full of inherent contradiction.
Okay.
That's what I began with.
Okay. Deshratan Nigam wants to explain that, and then Indraneel Khan. Yes, Deshratan Nigam.
Only if he becomes honest as a lawyer.
NHRC is a statutory body which has its own independent powers, and it can, give a fact finding. And if you are not, if you don't like it, go and challenge it in the appropriate court of law. It is an independent body. It has a right to even give compensation to the victims. And wherever the human rights are being violated, they have those independent powers of the court. Courts cannot interfere there. You can challenge it in court in an appropriate cases through various remedies that are available. Now the Honorable Court gave its finding on the basis of the affidavits filed by the state government, the NHRC report, and the various other, responses that were there before. And let me tell you, investigation is going to be very, very difficult in the cases of murder and rape because a lot of medical evidence has already been destroyed. Gone. Yes. Because and therefore it will be a very challengeable task for the CBI and the SIT because medical evidences in the case of rape and murders are very, very important, and recovery of weapons and etc. They may have been destroyed. So it is going to be a challenge for CBI.
Yes. Okay. Indraneel Khan, you wanted to come in, and then I have a question for Shoaib. Yes.
Manojit wanted the Honorable High Court to just scrap up the report, the findings of the Honorable Human Rights Commission because the TMC wanted it. Just only the only excuse was the TMC wanted it, as if the court is just a servant of the TMC. And what also Manojit was saying that West Bengal is insulted. Yes, Bengal is insulted when a daughter is raped, when a son is murdered in broad daylight, just because one does not subscribe to the ideology and to the tune of the ruling party. West Bengal is actually insulted when the livelihood of their people are being snatched away because they don't subscribe to the union of the ruling party. West Bengal is insulted when her reputation is tarnished because of 60 murders and 13 rapes that are being now investigated. West Bengal is insulted when its reputation is tarnished because of this gaudy post-poll violence. West Bengal is insulted when our people don't have work and they have to go to migrate to other places, and those who are having work, their livelihood are also being snatched away. West Bengal is also insulted when the people have to, when an ordinary person has to take recourse to the court and just to get her justice, and because the state administration does not listen to the plight of the victim as long as they don't subscribe to the ruling party. That is the situation of West Bengal. West Bengal is insulted because of such a biased administration which is apathetic to the people of the state. West Bengal, as the present TMC government, thinks only of its own voters, not of the 10 crore people of 10 crore population.
Indrajil Khan, at no point in any state will there be such clear division, vitiating of the atmosphere, violence, hate, only because of one side. So every time you raise your finger towards the other side, please do keep in mind the biggest challenger to TMC, taking them on head to head, is your party. Equally to be questioned when it comes to the violence which has unleashed before, post, last year or whenever. None of the political parties can wash their hands of it, not now and not in the earlier avatar either. I'm completely out of time, but very quickly to Shoaib, one question. Shoaib, does it look like the TMC will want to take this forward and challenge this verdict, because politically also it doesn't suit them? This isn't good for them.
No, it doesn't. As we saw, from Mr. Nigam Singh, these sort of extreme comparisons with the Taliban and all would hurt to the Trinamool, although, I would sort of not think that they're very factually accurate. But what we see, especially nationally, we're seeing this sort of almost, this sort of snowballing of what is exactly happening in West Bengal, which does hurt the Trinamool when it comes to political optics. And the Trinamool will try and sort of shift the conversation away, and we'll have to see how successful it is in the coming days.
Okay, thank you so much to all of the panelists for joining us. We have to wait and watch what the West Bengal government does next. But in the wisdom of the High Court of Calcutta, they decided that a CBI probe and an SIT probe of Bengal police officers are required into the many cases, FIRs, allegations of brutal crime and brutal, ugly violence that took place in the state of West Bengal after the election results came out in the first week of May. And there, I feel, it is required. Whether the SIT or CBI are able to do a fair job and provide justice remains to be seen. But at some point, we have to find faith in our investigations, in our justice delivery system. And so even before the process begins, I think it is unfair to point fingers and question the decisions of a judicial system. A court-monitored probe must be given a chance. In an atmosphere where police, CBI, any other investigative agency is always given a political color, what else do we have left if not a judicial justice delivery system? At least for the people of West Bengal. Thank you for joining us.